Alrighty then. We're back from outer space. Let's get to work. So we got all the animations set up for the most part. um, let's double check our performance here. Should be doing pretty good. My nose got so itchy. So we're still on good, which is good. I want to get one upload to VR chat, take a look, see if the model is working. Let's get these toggles for the clothing into the avatar as well. We'll test that out, and then we'll move on to finishing Kaden as well. So what we need are these parameters right here put into our VRC expressions menu, or first the parameters, then the menu. So let's go ahead and add those in. Just copy this first, and then make a bunch. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Coat. Shirt. Shirt 2. Pants. Shorts. And shoes. Did I miss one? Oh, glass. Oh, I feel so full. I ate a lot. Ooh. Okay. So that's those values, standard clothing stuff. Now we'll want to go to the expression menu, create a clothing toggles submenu. Just duplicate this one. Draw the submenu clothing. And in this one, we want to delete that and delete this. Then drop it here. Go back to here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, I believe. Hello, Kai. Welcome. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Hello, hello. Foot of snow. Sounds a little chilly. It just started warming up here in Texas. Should turn on the AC today. Sudden temperature drop. Oh. Well, I hope you're staying warm. It was like -1 Celsius. Going to up to -31 Celsius. Those are quite icy. That is nuts. That's quite cold. Holy moly! What area are you in again? That's nuts. West side, like Mountain, Alberta. Alberta. That is pretty wild. You must be pretty close to the mountain then for it to get that cold. All right. It's like +5 Celsius the other day and warm. Well, 5 Celsius. How warm is that? Doesn't sound terribly warm to me, but I don't know. 41? That's still really cold to me. 41 Fahrenheit. Yes, indeed. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you are definitely up north, frozen north. Well, I'm glad you got good internet. I mean, that certainly would be necessary. Oh, I'm so full right now. I'm just holding my food down. Well, okay. Um, Everything should be working. Oh, the one problem is the coat trim is not fuzzy anymore for some reason. 10 is warm here. I think hottest it ever gets here is 34 Celsius. That sounds pretty warm. That's nuts, though. -50. Yeah, I would not be able to survive that. Oops. That's what the wind chill. Whew. That'd be Sam Dudder dead time. Dead to the cold. Ugh. Yeah, I grew up in California and I moved to Texas, so warm weather is kind of what I'm used to. My brother was just telling me, like, I want to move someplace cold because he really likes it when it's chilly. He would prefer to wear heavier clothing, be warm all the time. Well, Northwest Coast would probably be ideal. Oh, yeah, I would think so. Be on the coast up north. That's some chill. West. But in Ontario, it's super nice to be in a place that's so green. No, you're it's so dry. I hate that. I like British Columbia is tropical forest. I don't believe you. Just so warm. Oh, interesting. I mean, it's still probably pretty cold. It just doesn't freeze. All right, what went wrong with my coat trim? Oh, I know. I know what it is. Okay. Perfect. So delete that. Giant areas of tropical ferns. Yeah, I love that when it's like in the forests and stuff. Excuse me. In yeah, Northern California, there's a lot of redwoods and sequoias. The sequoias were really cool. Just some of the biggest trees I've ever seen in my life. Like redwoods are tall, but sequoias are like extra thick. Extra thick trees. Did find it funny when I went to Hawaii, ocean level was so hot, but I went about the same height I live in Canada. It was always nice and cool. As long as you got that wind. Oh, sorry to be yawning and sleepy. Let's leave the cube there. Dun, dun. Okay, here we go. Time to test. Time to test. All right, I'm gonna let my headset boot up. And I'm just gonna run to the restroom really quick. All right. Oh, right. All right, I'm back. Oh, since I'm here, so exporting AutoRig Pro without the rigs was the thing to make sure no rig gets sent over FBX. So they have, I'll show you in just one moment, but basically if you go to export at the bottom, here, I'll just open Blender. Um, so if you go to File, Export, there's an AutoRig Pro FBX. You just have to make sure your rig is selected. But basically, just go through these settings and check Unity Humanoid. And you want to make sure you hit Fix Rig right here, that you click that button. Then, yeah, if you just want to screenshot this, this is what I use. Excuse me. And then I don't import animation. Well, you might have to import animation. I believe there was. Well, actually, I don't know. I think you'll be okay because, yeah, you should be fine. Yeah, these are the settings there. All right. Just gonna watch some VR really quick. But yeah, they AutoRig Pro has its own FBX export settings, and let me open yours in just a second to double check what settings I had enabled for yours, and I'll screenshot and send that your way. Whoa, that was loud. Because you'll want it to match what I was sending out. There we go. Let's turn on some clothes. Why would it not have these? Oh, right. I have to set default values through. Gotcha. Okay. Hands aren't working. Oh, so there's no expression value. All right. Perfect. Pretty good so far. Whoa. And a little bit of stretching on the arms. But I have this pulled down more. That looks fine right there. So neck's a little thin. I think my play space shouldn't be cracking at all. All right. Perfect. All right. All right. This is a good point to stop. And we'll continue with Gracken. Manya. No, sorry. And let me get you those values for the export. Hard to believe it's 2 months since I worked on that. Definitely glad I switched to this view. Okay, file, export, auto pro. Ooh, I meant to send a message to a potential client. All right. So I sent you screenshots there, Kai, of oops, why did I close Unity? I did not need to. Okay. Now we go back to here. All right. So we're switching gears. Now we're going to be working on Kaden, getting that avatar started. Yours looks different. Interesting. Send me screenshots of what yours looks like. Hello, CJM. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're switching to my other commission currently. We'll be able to put the final touches on this step of Kaden. Doesn't have Unity humanoid stuff. Let's take a look. Oh, Did you create a rig, or are you just looking at my imported one? But is that rig the one that I made, or is it one you made? Potentially, you can. So when you're creating a rig, depending on how you created it, um, it could have different options, different settings. I believe. I'm pretty sure. Not 100% sure on that, but yours has Unity thing, and the one I was testing making has nothing. Gotcha. Um, you can extract things from rigs. So Rig Pro has some specific ways on um, adding like additional bones. But if you are just going to use the humanoid one, I would definitely recommend using starting from mine and adding things to it. Now, when you make a rig, when you make a rig here, so as long as you're using your starting with like Auto Rig Pro Smart, this is basically like a really simple, quick way to make the rig. That's a nice way to start making the rig. But if you need to add bones to my armature, what you want to do is make sure you're on this layer here, this last bone layer. So if I go into the rig and I wanted to modify it, let's say eventually I'll be adding bones to the coat in order to make it have fizz bones. So you'll want to add them here. Know how to add bones to objects? Absolutely. And AutoRig Pro has some specific aspects to adding bones. Especially if you want to export them. So if I'm parenting this bone to the hips, so if I wanted to parent say this is going to move the coat collar here. If I wanted to, I have to make sure that I parent it to the bones that I see in this last layer, the last layer index. So that's, and also welcome B3. So if you look at the rig I have set up for the giraffe Avi, that would be just a really good reference point for how I've structured everything. Really, when you're going through the layers, so you can hit Shift M and you have your armature layers. There's only a few layers that I use, or that are used. AutoRig Pro uses this first one for all the control handles, right there. And then there's a few other handles in the second layer. And then the only other one that they use is the last layer. All the other ones you kind of just want to ignore. Metaphorically, if some person wanted you to add bones to the avatar, like a lanyard swingable on their Avi, how much would you charge? It depends on what you're looking to do. That shouldn't be too difficult, as long as it's like stays in the same bone. If you're trying to switch it between bones, still do, but a little bit more advanced. Maybe like $50 to do it. It'd probably take me like half a day to model it and then rig it and then add it to an avatar. The big difficulty is just making sure I can work with the avatar that you want to add it to. So what about the face bones for face mask? Does it remove those as well? Or if you're talking about the face bones here, in order to export those to Unity, you just have to make sure that the facial toggle is checked, and that way you'd be able to export it with all the facial bones. Um, but if you one of the big advantages for me for using an AutoRig Pro setup is that these bones are named, the unchecked is for less bones. It will still export some bones of the face, like the eyebrows and eyes and ears, but like lip, I don't think it'll export lip bones. Oh, it'll also by default include the jaw. Like imagine you could hold a lanyard that doesn't move, that add bones to a lanyard to make move in Blender. Certainly, definitely doable in Blender. Blender has a lot of easy things to add in there, but it's definitely doable for VR chat as well. Yeah, if you want like a something to hold and spin, that's doable. Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Something like that. Um, but if you're Kai, if you're asking about those animations, the one big advantage of hit you up whenever I finish putting the avatar together. That sounds perfect. Yeah. You're welcome to reach out to me here, and then let me send you my website just in case. That should have my email right there, and try to teach it. Um, Teaching it would be potentially a little bit more intensive because I would have to explain why I do certain things, and just and also like making rigs. There's some learning there. Even what I'm discussing right now is very related to it. Um, but yeah, Kai, the animation should be able to transplant between any AutoRig Pro rig. So if you have a facial animation for this character, I would be able to get that over to the Giraffe Avi or any other AutoRig Pro rig. So that's a huge animation. Whatever. I'll learn that myself or just outsource to you. That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I'm always here if you want to ask questions and stuff. Oh, Jenna, what do you think of that cat meme at the other day? It's perfect. It definitely feels like my life. My cat was just in here a second ago. She was all freaked out by someone using the lawnmower outside. And then she keeps looking. The one thing about cats that always freaks me out, and I've seen people talk about online, is like when they look at things like there's something there, but you don't see anything. You're like, is there a ghost? Why are you looking over there like that? They see the ghosts. That's my theory as well. I'd like to think that there's no ghosts in my apartment. Most likely it's just some bug or something that she's staring at. But my favorite part is when she gets a little bit scared because then her tail gets all floofy. I think that's super cute. Spider. Spider. But if you make an avatar, feel free to send me some screenshots. Either way, I'd love to see what you create. So, um, even if it's not something I'm working on directly, I do love seeing what people get up to in VR chat. Let's see. What's the right way to do this? Speeder. There are some big spiders here in Texas too. I did not know that they got as big as they did before moving here, but they're like the size of your hand. Some of them. Mostly do edits, but I'm doing a couple of packages with a friend of mine. Oh, well, nice. That's awesome. It's always fun to have like matching avatars. It's very charming. Gucci gang. Nothing I have right now is one of my uh, is a is a band that I've made. Gotcha. Or it's my first model. Gotcha. Okay. Heck yeah. Yeah. I've been just with all I've been doing and stuff. I always think about making tutorials, and I'd really love to get around to it at some point. But I always end up just working on commissions and stuff. For better or worse, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of funny that it works out that way so often. Didn't even know how to do blend shapes correctly on it. Ah, blend shapes. The cursed blender feature. Those are always a little difficult to get exactly right. I'd rather do blend shapes than waiting. But rigging is nicer these days. Good. Hopefully the Auto Rig Pro does help. I do prefer it. I'll see if I have a photo of the of the bleh. No, I'd love to see. Never waypointed yet. A little worried. It's interesting. There are definitely some difficult aspects of it. It's nice once you know it, but it is hard to know. Never been in a situation where I needed it, honestly. Learning it is, if you plan on making avatars regularly, it's like putting time into learning weight painting is definitely worth it. Um, and there are certainly some shortcuts to a lot of those things. Speed ups. The one thing Kai and I have been talking about, AutoRig Pro, has really sped up my rigging workflow. I'll actually probably do a from scratch rigging today. So if that's definitely something you're interested in learning, I will be doing a little bit of that today. And it might be good to you for you to see as well, Kai. Just watch me do the AutoRig Pro from scratch. Maybe I should record it. I'll post it in Discord. Oh, heck yeah. I'll take a look in just a moment. Yeah, I'll record me doing the from scratch rigging for this avatar um, today because that might be good for me to turn into a tutorial. And if you guys can't make the whole thing, then you can always catch it afterwards or reference it later. I'm just attempting to make some rigs off some old rig models. Gotcha. Okay. and post it in Discord. Oh, heck you. All right, let's take a look. No, very cute. Very, very cute. Those eyes are interesting. What under boob? Why'd you show it, Lambo? I mean, why wouldn't I show off other people's work? I'm promoting you. I promise I am better. I mean that I like your avatar. I see I'm on the subreddit for VR chat, and I see a lot of talk of like e boy, e girl aesthetic. There was like a poll on it recently, which was kind of interesting to see. I should just go back and make it better. I mean, that's the curse of all art. You can always do more. There's no end to perfection. Slide myself back saying you girl, but you did it. Yeah, I don't like her assets. Which specifically? I like them. It's like I mean, it's definitely if you have that base and you start working with it, that's certainly a good jumping off point. Even if it's not like, even if the current aesthetic's not something you particularly fond of. I have no problem with it though. I think it's just one of those things where it's reached a point of popularity that generally there are opinions. They just don't flow. I can't how to put it into words. That's fine. Just take some time to find what you do like. Identify as an e-girl, but I'm not a girl. Gotcha. I feel the E within me. Oh, speaking of cats, Lux, you want to say hi? Oh no, she's already under the bed. In our heart of hearts, we're all e-girls. Honestly, the girls just have so much more options. They certainly are the favorites. There's definitely some clear preferences in the demographics VR has. But guys sell so good. Do you mean as in like sales, as in uh, sales of avatars? Oh, interesting. I've really been meaning to get into selling avatars. Really should do that sometime. Oh, look at that shiny nose. It's a little jagged here. Oh, it's because of the shark. Hmm. From the people I follow, guys are it. Interesting. I suppose right now it's like a contrast to current popularity, as in the e feminine forms are more popular currently. Well, that means I should make some boy avatars. I was doing something that made me forget. You are making an avatar. Time to open Blender. Cute. I like the paws. Very charming. I think I'll cut the legs off with a injection. Yeah. We'll come back to that. Paws are nice. Oh, thanks, CJM. It took me a while. I actually had to make a separate hand in order to get my baking to work correctly. But I do think they came out very cute. We're going to add some shadowing and stuff to it as well. And it's actually more high resolution than this, or the final version will be. But I have to work in a lower resolution because my computer can't handle too much. Did you finish the last commission? Gracken will require a bit more work because I need to create face tracking. And there's some work I'll do off stream for him as well, just to kind of solidify. I need to do the body texturing. I'll probably do that off stream because it's more realistic. I think that would be preferable. And then as well, I have to make face track. So I expect to finish him by Wednesday or Thursday, most likely, and just dial in some tweaks. And then this boy here, I will be finishing at least the body today, and then maybe next week I'll be able to do the clothing for him because right now the client is still getting a design made for the clothing. So we're gonna be coming back to work on the boy. We'll actually be starting a new avatar today as well. And then I do need to follow up with CJM regarding their commission. Does face tracking tend to take longer? So normal face tracking or like face rigging for like expressions and things like that doesn't take terribly long. But this character in particular doing the real face tracking, which I think is what you meant, where it's using a Vive for eye and face tracking. It shouldn't take more than a day for me to make. Um, I did some research this morning to try to figure out all the steps, and it's all very doable. I've made face tracking for the iPhone before, and it's extremely similar. So I expect it to go pretty quick. Is this your full time job? It is. It is. I do make avatars full time, um, which I enjoy. I did concept art a while back, freelance concept art. Um, it is a little crazy. I feel very thankful every day that I get to do this because it's certainly better than some of the jobs I've had over the years. She's been getting really fast now. Oh, thank you, Kai. Yeah, I'm getting the speed boost. Any big gigs with concept art? Not at all. Not at all. Very much working for very small indie studios or individuals. Mostly individuals, honestly. Like, oh, I want a one character design or something like that. A lot of relatively work I couldn't share too publicly, both for subject matter and NDAs. But I would say that relative to how I like working, um, I really prefer doing 3D art um, over 2D or painting because, especially in the context of concept art, because the turnaround time is just so fast. Um, and I was not charging enough for it. Anyway, I really enjoy VR chat, and I certainly think that this kind of work probably only get bigger as time goes on, um, because I think VR just in general is going to get bigger. I know Gracken got a big gig soon. Oh, very cool. Our friend Gracken, who's the client of the previous avatar I was working on today, um, he does 3D printing of people's VR chat avatars. So if you want like a figurine of your avatar, you can get that made. Life size statue? Holy moly! That's wild. That was wild. I bet that you could make a good business making body pillows of people's VR chat avatars. 20K project. Dang. Dang. That's insane. That is actually insane. I was just talking about doing that with my friend like last week. It's nuts how big it's getting because I've seen like concerts with like IRL concerts with VR dancers and stuff. You shared that with me, Kai. Um, anyway, I just think that VR chat's really hitting this inflection point in terms of popularity. Uh, and I certainly would love to continue doing this indefinitely. Um, like compared to what I was doing in the past, where I just work the same in crazy hours, but alone in a room with no one to talk to or do anything with, is like this is much preferable. I think VR chat had a peak during lockdown, but it's growing again. Yeah, there's definitely the kind of shift uh, out of COVID era, uh, but just the I don't know. There's like things that I keep seeing where I go like that's just gonna be everywhere, like where anime conventions are creating the portal walls. You've probably seen this, but the basically they'll make a two-way mirror into VR chat and then and reverse into the convention, so people can look into the convention in VR chat, or if you're in the convention, you can look into VR chat, and it's just a lot of furry conventions have been doing it, and anime conventions. Um, it's really cool, and I just think that has like such a I don't know. There's something about that that really makes me feel like it's kind of close to being something more than just a niche. Can you imagine if PlayStation VR came out? I don't think they can, but if PlayStation VR allowed VR chat on their platform, that would be wild. I think there's some legal problems with that, but here's to hoping. Sony has been way too restrictive. Yeah, I think the odds are low of it happening, but it would be wild if it did. Yeah, it's pretty hard with all the ripped models you see in VR chat. It's odds are low. Oh, Dutta, with new Quest can run on my Steam Deck. Oh, okay. Oh, really? So you can hook your Quest up to your Steam Deck. Oh, that's super cool. That's that's fascinating. Steam has been seemingly kind of absent from the VR or sorry, Vive has been seemingly absent from VR scene, but I think the Steam Deck is really their on ramp into making a very very affordable headset. Does it still require a Facebook Meta account? I do believe they changed that because that's the whole thing. Why I stopped using Meta's Quest. I believe you can entirely uh, remove now. I'm 90% sure. I believe you still have to make an account. It just doesn't have to be a Facebook account. Let's look that up. Quest account. Yeah, you have to make a Meta account. So it's still pretty questionable, I think, if that's your concern. Um, but because the fact they have a store there, it's like it's on some level you're going to need an account of some kind. Um, but how much personal information you share with it is up to you, I suppose. I certainly think Facebook is a garbage company, um, but it's really hard to think of any other headset that's nearly as affordable as the Quest. Um, it's really nothing else in the same ballpark, unfortunately. There's a new headset that is compatible with Steam Deck, uses its USB-C port, but requires a bit more power. Interesting. Is it so? It's just compatible with it, but it's also compatible with a PC. I'm assuming. Do you know the name of it? Which Steam Deck came out with battery packs? You can't just plug it in USB style because you can just buy a USB-C battery pack. Because I'm definitely looking for other. I really want to keep my eyes on some affordable headsets. I don't know if you all saw the um, big screen headset that's coming out. just with the size alone makes it kind of tempting. The one with 90 FOV, I suppose so. I don't know what the FOV is. I've just been seeing screenshots of how tiny it is. Because for like the shooters that I play, like it would be so nice to have really, really tiny headset. Like just the neck strain alone is worth it. 90 FOV. That's fair. I'm not too worried about that. FOV's not as a big deal for me. Um, but I certainly could certainly understand why that would be a pain point for people's purchasing. For $1,000, it is a little nuts that that is what the FOV is. Like for the price, that's pretty wild. But I think they're kind of hoping the size alone, the form factor alone, would be enough of a compelling purchase point. I mean, with that form factor, even with the FOV, if it made text legible and it's that light, like I could use it while working. Like compared to the Quest Pro, if you compare it directly to the Quest Pro, I think it's clearly the winner in that regard. Uh, one for Steam Deck is AR, so no. Gotcha. Sent you both bids and reviews. Okay, let's check it out. Interesting. Okay, the tested reviews. I'll check them out later because those are long videos. But Unreal Air, and then the big screen. Yeah. I think for me the other quality that is a huge problem and probably the main reason I won't get it is that it's wired. It's like man, I would wear a backpack with a battery and a transponder in it if they just could have the tether so it only goes to your back. It's like I don't understand the need to have absolutely everything that it needs on the headset itself. It's like you might as well like just have a little tether to a back I could wear. And it's like Corridor Digital did that. Yeah, it's like let's just do that. Like it makes so much sense. It makes way too much sense for what we actually have to deal with. So we'll just do AO on this. AO paint. Heck yeah. I mean, it even just for a battery pack. I have laptop that can run VR now. Just don't lay on your back. You'll just hear a pop, and then your laptop's done. It's a little bit of white right there at the tip. Right. Can we make a nice aluminum case around it to protect it? Absolutely. Like basically like a roll cage, you know? Like you could really make it have a lot of ventilation, still be easy to wear. And like a laptop's not that heavy in a backpack. It's really not. The heaviest part about it's going to be the battery. Yeah, if you could take the big screen headset and hook it up to something like that, 100% I would buy it because that's the ideal form factor in my opinion. It's just something you could put on, walk around with. Right. If I could make it run on Steam Deck since it's Linux. Oh, interesting. Yeah, if you could just get it to run on Steam Deck, plug a huge battery into your Steam Deck, you're good to go. Shouldn't this be blurring more than it is? I feel like okay. So we'll add a fill on this, set to linear dodge, and just very softly bring it in there, just to smooth out the ambient occlusion. It's a little bit much, maybe. There we go. That's better. Oh yeah, I think that looks quite good. Oh, nice. Yeah, I think the future of headsets is very bright. Um, the hardware is just going to keep getting better. My brother and I have been going out to LA Fitness and using the racquetball courts there to play racquetball. But it's like if the apparently the Quest really is going to be coming out soon with local multiplayer, so you can do local co-op games in VR. I'd love to see if VR chat could harness that in some way. But even just for like shooters, it's like you could totally rent like a little racquetball court or some other like outdoor space, and then it'd be like a virtual airsoft game. You just run around doing VR shenanigans, but in real life, in a real space, and like actually moving. Um, I'm sure it's very ripe for injuries to start with, but as you get used to it, it'd probably be super fun. Oops. Then you just need a setup like we were talking about. A little backpack running around. Easy peasy. I think VR chat for local multiplayer is such a cool idea, though. If you could like go out and hang out with people, but in your avatars, I could see that being so popular at furry conventions. Anyway, I'm just ranting now. But I always love. I mean, VR is right at the intersection of imagining a possibility and then realizing it. Perfect. Okay. Cleaned up that paint. Teeth look good. I think we'll need a shadow. Oh, we need to make inside of the mouth. We have not added to our mouth template. So let's do that now. Perfect. So cute. Let's get that blur here. Paint. Blur. I think that looks good. All right. All right, so we need some shadows now. So everything's just a very flat color, which isn't bad, but shadows usually help bring out the depth of the character. So we'll start with the curvature template. Bada boom. And right away we get some base color changes. A little too much right now. Let's just do just highlights first. A little bit of blur. Nice. So we can turn it up too. We set it to, oh no, it's all set to open. Then the shadow is too strong. Voxel. $35. That front floof looks dangerous. Could poke an eye out. For just blur, it's it does something that blur doesn't. So you can blur things in Substance Painter, but problem is your seams. So on your UV edges, you get this little jagged cut, which is a bit of a bummer. Not really what you'd want. What you really want is for it to be able to blur across the seam seamlessly. um, but that's not currently possible. We'll think on that one. Think on that one. It would be really nice. Would be very nice. I just used to use Smart Normal Map to fix the seams, but if there's a better way, that'd be ideal. Yeah, I think that the Vox, because they use like a voxel system, that's probably the best way to do it. Because then it's just like right now I have to manually clean this up. But even then, it's still, the seam is still a problem. Yeah, I'm going to do it. This is like the fourth time in the last 6 months that I've looked at it and been like, hmm. One second, yeah. 3D blur. Okay. Filter library import. All right, let's see what this can do. So turn off the blur here. And we want to add a filter, 3D blur. That is better. Still there a little bit though. Missing something to install. That's it. Okay. How does that compare to this blur? I mean, it's definitely improved. Improved. It is a lot better. Yeah, that is a lot better. Okay. I'm convinced. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that would take me forever to clean up. Okay. All right. Saves me an hour of time. That's worth it. It's a little spot there. Especially for these kind of the shadows that I'm doing. In fact, I'll probably replace it for the ambient occlusion blur that I did. So right now I'm using it on the curvature, which is great. But before I was using it, or I did a blur on this one. But we got like these kinds of seams. So if I go to the base, we go to the blur here, which is blurring right there. We'll turn that off. We'll right click filter for the normal end AO 3D blur. Not terribly better. Dither. Ah, I have, wait. I'm confused. Oh, it's set to replace currently. If I set this to normal, I can hear my computer working hard with this one. That's a bit better. Okay. Don't like it for that one. So I think it'll probably be better used for very large blurs, but for detailed blurs, I'll still want to use the standard blur. I can live with that. All right. So now we still want to add a few more shadows here and there to really make the character pop. So we'll take our shadow template folder. Actually, we'll do our bevel shadow template, which is way too much at first. Want to do, let's add another paint. And remove it from everything except the beans. Oh, look at that. A little too dark. Let's turn down the distance and turn up the smooth. Super cute. I would also like to do that. No, I can't do that for the teeth. That won't work properly. Darn. But we can do the paint here again. Go into the spots right around the paw. Paint that in. A little bit too strong on those, but right there it looks quite good. Let's see, if I paint in this one, then we go to our bevel, and we adjust some of these values. Yeah. We'll add it in a different way. These are perfect though. So for that middle spot here, Perfect. Oh, curvature template that I added. We do have this highlight section. Right now, we still are using the global blur. Let's try that. Well, I mean, that looks great. It's a little strong. Yeah, let's still add the filter. Nice. That's, yeah, that looks great. Fuck yeah. Oh yeah, look how soft that looks. Me gusta. Back to the bevel. A few other spots we could paint in this bevel. First would be the eye. Next would be the nose. Perhaps the mouth. Make them beans pop. I like it. Nice. All right, on to the next thing, the actual shadow template. I'm going to add this to a few places. Start with a gradient. Set to linear dodge, no repeat. Put this one on the tongue. Excuse me. All right, so we'll add a shadow at the back of the tongue. And we'll add a paint here. Just fill in that. All right. Nice. Next one, we'll add to the teeth. So we can get a proper little shadowing at the top of the teeth. Let's turn the contrast on this one way up. Or maybe the balance. Both. Balance and contrast. I need a little tweak the level. Next, do that again, but for the other side. Look at that. Just some soft shadowing. Nice. I'm going to actually include or bevel the eyebrow. A little strong. Maybe 50%. I'm also going to include the very edge of the eye. The nose. Let's put this up to just kind of a darker gray. Then paint out that middle shadow. Nice. All right, save. Oh, well, thank you. What? Oh, yeah. Thirst quenched. All right, let's save and export to Unity. Maybe. And suddenly saving takes so long. It must be the add-on. Wow. It changes export speeds too. Nice. Immediately cleaner. The eyes pop a lot more with that shadow. Oh, it looks really good. Very, very cute. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to rigging the character now. We have a very good point to stop at, the texturing. So now I'm going to get into rigging. Yay. And I will actually be recording this segment because I know we were talking to Kai and Behe earlier about rigging avatars and kind of generally what I do to make that happen. So I'm going to go through that process on stream, and I'll be talking like it's a tutorial. Uh, so, just so you know. All right, so I will be actually talking like I'm making a YouTube tutorial. So feel free to keep asking questions and stuff. I can always cut that out, but I will be. Yeah, I'll probably just keep it casual. Hello, YouTube. So I am going to go over the process of rigging a VR chat avatar. There's one thing you need to keep in mind if you're using this to rig your VR chat avatars is that I am using a paid add-on called AutoRig Pro. I heavily recommend AutoRig Pro. I'm going to go ahead and look that up right now. So this is the add-on that I'm using to rig my avatar. It's $40, which is a decent chunk of money, but I think the time it saves, the features it offers, is well worth the money, including a rig fast. Just if you rigged characters with Mixamo before, this is a very similar process, but it gives you a full rig with control handles, things like that. Well worth the money. And there's a lot of other features as well. I'll go over some of them during this tutorial, but if you're interested in this add-on, I will post the link in the description. All right. So this is the character we'll be rigging today. This is a client commission that I'm doing. The avatar's name is Kaden. And yeah, let's get into it. So here we have the Auto Rig Pro setup, and we're going to use the Smart setup. It's okay to have a modifier on your avatar. I do recommend applying any subdivision modifiers you're using beforehand. I prefer to keep a mirror modifier. So even if I had a subdivision, I would apply it, delete half the model, put a mirror modifier back on, just so I can have the mirror modifier, because it makes putting the weight painting on one side of the model to the other instantaneous, very easy, and Auto Rig Pro has no problem using that. All right. So I think there's some eyeballs in here. Yes, perfect. So we've got the eyeballs there. This is actually the full model. We're going to go ahead and select the main body and say Auto Rig Pro Smart, get selected objects, full body. Now, we just add little points here. I'm going to add the neck point right about there, chin right there, shoulders, and wrists right there. Well, we have the spine root and ankles right there. Doesn't have to be exact. There will be an opportunity. You will actually need to do one final tweaking of bone position and stuff. So you just generally want to get things in the right position, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I would recommend changing your spine count to 3. VRChat can actually use 4 spine bones now, but I still prefer using 3 just for myself. And we're also going to go to facial setup, click that, and begin placing these points to the corresponding location. So there are ears that we can add, but since the ears are very different here, I won't actually be using these. I'm just going to place them in a spot here or so, and I will remove them a little bit later. These are the cheek points. So there's like a inflate option, so you can make like puffed cheeks, and so you just generally want to position this on the cheek. These are your lip bones, so we're going to go ahead and place that to the best of our ability. It's a little chin point there, so right about here. I'm just scaling vertically. And again, just trying to position these as best as possible. Okay. And something like this. All right, next is the nose. So you want one spot at the tip of the nose and the other at the kind of middle of the eyeballs. Usually I use the kind of tear duct as the point I'm putting it between. So right about there. So next we have the eyes. Some changes we can do here. I like to put it in the corner as well. A little odd. Let's scale it down first. And I'll move it over. And we've got the bottom lined up pretty well. Something to this effect. And now we'll put these on the top. It's going to be a little bit difficult to rig this 100% correctly, but we'll probably get pretty darn close. Okay, next is the eyebrow. So I'm actually going to hide this object because we have the eyebrows beneath the hair, and we'll just line it up. Boom, boom, and boom. Okay, that all looks very good. Again, we can tweak things in just a moment. For now, we do want to include our eyes. I have labeled my eye object sphere, I believe, which is not the best way to do it. Ideally, it is named eyes. So let's add that now, and now it's an easy search to find it. Perfect. So let's go ahead and hit go to create the initial setup. Oaks, welcome to the stream. You added the keyboard and mouse action overlay. I did, indeed. It does help quite a bit. Really helps. And hopefully, I'm kind of putting together some. I'll be uploading this segment of my stream to YouTube. So hopefully that'll help anyone following along. All right. So a lot of things are. Also, hope you're having a good Tuesday, Oaks. Welcome to the stream. Did you have a President's Day off? I'm going to move the hips into position. Right about here. So one thing for the hips that you'll definitely need to do if you're looking to do full body tracking is you need the root, the bottom of the root to be behind and above. So back to the right in this case, to the right and above the hip. That is vital if you are going to be doing full body tracking. Otherwise, it's going to twist in a really unexpected way, basically flipping the hips up or the pelvis up in a uncomfortable looking and very odd way. I did have it off. Oh, heck yeah. I did as well. I was enjoying chilling and played a lot of video games. Okay, now we're going to line the knee up right here. Put it a little bit forward. You want a very slight bend in your knee, just so the rig knows the direction to bend. Basically kind of like crinkling it so it'll have an easier time bending the way you want. Next we'll take this. It's best to put it at the bottom. I attempted to dive into learning nodes. Geometry nodes? Oh, heck yeah. There's so much you can do with that. Certainly intimidating, though. Put the ankle right here. And just trying to get everything kind of lined up as best we can. I'm going to lower the head. I want the pivot point to be basically evenly between the jaw and the back of the head. Made a very basic color ramp cell shader node I really like. Oh, heck yeah. Oh, so, sorry, shader nodes. Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, there's some really, really cool ones out there that I've seen. I have yet to do too much of it with myself. Now, for the jaw, basically, to position the base of the jaw, you want it to go to the chin, but you want the pivot point to be where you imagine it will rotate down like a circle. So if this makes a circle, you would have a little line right here, and that gives you an idea of the motion of the jaw. A lot of times, or when I was first messing around with this, I'd put it down here, but then that creates a really odd rotation that doesn't seem as natural. Best to have an idea of where it will start and where it will end when the jaw opens and closes. All right. So those are the legs and the torso. Now I'm going to focus on the arms and hands. What I like to do is straighten these out at least a little bit. Like this. I've found that if it's too angled forward, VR chat will have a really odd time snapping the bone back and forth. It really prefers a very straight line. And then the shoulder's in a good spot, usually right in the armpit. And we've got our elbow. Kind of see the form I've made. Let's just try to set that up correctly. Pretty good. Now, my hand came out very mangled, which is actually a good thing for this tutorial because I'll go over kind of my main steps in fixing that. The first is we're going to actually set up some snapping. So right here, you have your snapping settings. You can turn that on with Shift Tab. And right now I have it set to face project, but there's a very, very useful tool called volume, which is volume snapping. So highly recommend using this. Makes positioning the fingers a lot easier. Now, with AutoRig Pro, this may not matter for a custom rig, but for AutoRig Pro, it's very important you know the names of the bones you are moving, because when it gets all jumbled like this, it's very easy to put bones in the wrong position or on the wrong finger, and it will still treat it as a thumb. It actually won't really affect your ability to rig certain things unless you put the thumb in the wrong spot. But once you bring it into Unity, fingers will bend incorrectly. Now, for this, I'm just trying to move it into position. Got the base of the thumb, thumb 2, and thumb 3. Just put that at the very, very tip or so, about there. Again, that's a nice part of the volume, so we'll snap it pretty nicely, as long as you have the right perspective. Thinking. So because this is a very stylized hand, a lot of the times what I'll do with very, very stylized hands is we will remove the last joint from the rig, because it just creates a much nicer bend, because these are just very large cylinder or spherical shapes, and if it bends in the middle of that sphere, it kind of like crinkles in a way that just doesn't look correct. Now, I can just continue to rig it like normal, setting up all the bones in the right positions, and then we'll just make sure that Unity doesn't pay attention to the tips of the fingers, and everything will still bend like it's just two joints at that point, because it will only bend the first two, but not the last. Okay, on to the next bone. So here's our index. This is the base. The thumb doesn't have this, but the base is basically the bone inside your hand. And it's very useful for some of the stretching features that AutoRig Pro has. You just want to make sure that it's not extending outside of the hand, like into the finger. All right. Right there. Right there. So this is the first knuckle. This is the second knuckle. About there. Third. And tip of finger. Gonna have to look at my own fingers to make sure I'm doing that right. All right. Something right about there. I'm going to turn off snapping. Okay. And just generally do some final tweaking. Okay, on to the rest. So this is the middle, perfect. I'm going to put it back a ways. Just think about that. There. Might be a little bit too low. Want the bend to be closer to the surface, top of the hand. Right up there. Snap for this one. And then the tip again. All right. Now, just like the knees, you do want a very slight bend in your bones because that, again, just gives whatever sort of algorithm ends up manipulating the bones an idea of which way it should bend. Bones shouldn't be perfectly straight except for maybe a tail. And even then, it's probably the only object, maybe a tail or spine. Anything else that's like a limb, should have a bend. Just moving some of these up. Like so. All right. And this one is also the ring finger, so perfect. Every bone should be in the correct order now. Awesome. Okay. All right. Next, I'm just going to move these a little bit closer together, kind of in a line. Again, think of your hand, and the bones do kind of have a similar point that they start in your hand. And actually, for the wrist, we're going to move that right to the center there. Again, thankfully, with the shift tab or snapping, we can make quick work of that. All right. That looks pretty good for the arm. Now for the final step before we create the control rig is the face, getting that all lined up correctly. So looking at the lips here, everything's in a pretty decent spot. I think we could kind of lower this one down. Usually you want your bones to be at the edge of a lip for the lips. A little hard to see with the bones in the way. This might be a little bit too close to the corner of the mouth. And with AutoRig Pro, we can actually automatically create even more bones along the lips. We're not going to do that just yet, but it will save us some time once we get to it. This is our lips roll. We put it right here or so. And our other lips roll. Again, that's kind of an AutoRig Pro feature. Not very necessary for VR chat avatars, so I would feel free to ignore that, put it in a nice position outside of the mouth, but not something you really have to worry about. Now for this, you really want it to be right in the middle of your cheek. So I'm going to switch my snapping to face project, and then just line it up nicely. Turn off project individual elements so it doesn't rotate. Cheek smile, just kind of where you imagine the hinge of your cheek would be. All right. Other than that, Make sure the eyebrow's on the eyebrow. And I think we're good to go. Now these here are the ears. If your character does have normal ears, like human ears, I would go ahead and line these up with them. So you would, for example, like just as an example, imagine an ear right here. I just line it up so that this is at the bottom of the ear and this is at the top of the ear. But since I will be doing something else for the large ears we have here, I'm actually going to disable this bone by just selecting it and clicking disable with Auto Rig Pro. Boom, disable. All right, so now I don't have any ear bones. We will be creating additional bones for the ears and for the tail, but we don't do that at this step. Oh, one last thing before I forget. There's a few other bones in the face and mouth that we need to move around, and that is our teeth bones. So this is the top set of teeth, and you can see that I have mesh inside the face for the teeth. Just going to kind of line those up in a nice way. Additionally, we have the tongue bones. And it's a little hard to see with this view, but there is a tongue right here. And I'm going to try to line this up with that tongue. Right about there. All right. Now we are ready to do the first match to rig. Matching to rig is basically where Rig Pro takes this skeleton we've created and creates a control rig. If you're familiar with Rigify, it's very similar, but one of the main advantages of Auto Rig Pro is that we can always go back and forth between the skeleton we are just tweaking and this control rig. So you can always edit your rig at any time, and it maintains any additional bones you create for it, and very handy. So we'll probably do that a few times just to tweak things. In fact, the first tweak I see is that our IK handles for the knees, they should be way more over here. They should be right in front of the knee, not off to the side. So we're going to go back into edit, select our upper leg, and turn on show IK direction, which, as you can tell, shows the direction of the IK. And you just basically want to make your leg vertical, and it'll put it in a better position. Something like that. Boom. And then back to match to rig. Nice. And there are additional advantages to Auto Rig Pro, but I really am just going to be discussing them as we get to them in this process. Yeah. All right. So now we have our rig. So you can see that I'm going to isolate it. You can see that individual parts of it are moving. Everything's kind of connected together already. Very handy stuff. That's not good though. The hips should not be tilted. Oops. So we're going to go back into here one more time. Select these bones. I'm going to use my 3D cursor to scale it to 0 on the x-axis. Perfect. All right, and once again, match to rig. What? It should be enough. Okay, unisolate. Back to looking at everything. So, we now have our rig. What we want to do now is create the additional bones. So this does have to be done after you match to rig. So do not make the tail bones beforehand. You make them once you have your control rig. This is your control rig. So to add it, we're going to enter edit mode by hitting tab and shift M. We're going to go to our final layer here, this very bottom right one. Click that. I'm going to select my armature settings and turn on in front. Now, in this mode, after the control rig is made, this is when you want to make your bones, and you also want to make them in this layer, at least at first, in the bottom right layer of your armature. And we're going to add a tail just by hitting Shift A to make the bone. We're going to rotate it and position it. So this will be our tailbone. Oh, snap. You know what? I take that back. This is going to be our ear bone. We'll come to back to the tail in a second because I realized I should have done that at a different step. All right, so this is going to be our ear. And the reason we're doing this manually is because we want to add more bones than AutoRig Pro is going to give it. Now, the important thing about adding your own custom bones to an AutoRig Pro is your naming. So in order to have it be imported into Unity, it has to be named a certain way. And all you have to do is put this CC underscore before any name. Any bone you want to automatically import, or export, I should say, to Unity needs to have a CC underscore before it. That is essential. And I'm going to name it ear1L. The .L, also very important for the symmetry. And now we're just going to position it right about there. Lean it forward a little bit. Make the rest of the bones. Line them up as best we can. And also change the names. So this will be ear2.L. Very important that the .L is at the back of it. Ear3.L. And then we're going to take the base of this little segment and parent it to the head bone. Again, you must be in the bottom right layer to do this, because if you are parenting it to any other bone in any other layer, it's the wrong bone and it will not import correctly. You can change it later, but if you're getting some errors, that might be why. Now we're going to parent, again, the base bone to the head bone using the keep offset so it maintains this distance. If I turn on the relationship lines, we can now see that it is attached. Now I'm going to also select the ear segment. We're going to go to Armature, Symmetrize, and create the other side. Again, you'll notice that the back part of the name is now .r. The Blender cannot symmetrize any bones that don't have that naming convention. So that's why I was very specific in naming it .l, so that Blender knows it is paired to this other bone. So ear2.r is paired to ear2.l, vice versa, for any bone. And you can see that convention through pretty much everything else. This one's not capitalized, but you can see the .l, .r. That's what lets Blender know that these are paired symmetrical bones. All right, so ears are created. And We may add some other bones later down the line for physics, such as the chest floof and the floof on the face, maybe on the hair as well. But this is a good start, and we're going to actually go back to our edit bone. So I'm going to hit tab to exit edit mode. We're going to edit the reference bones again. So now we're back in the original skeleton. This is like the AutoRig Pro hidden version of the rig. And we're going to add a tail here because they have a really cool setup for the tail. So we're going to hit tail. It's going to create a chain of bones that we then just position where we want it. So that looks pretty good for the tail. Got a wireframe so we get a little bit more exact. Then I will actually up the count. So I have this chain of bones selected and I go to limb options. We're going to turn it up to, I say 8. Bam. And voila. And I'll just turn the tip of it down a little bit so it bends right there. Okay, perfect. And again, thanks to the magic of AutoRig Pro, I'll hit match to rig, and it's automatically going to turn that tail into some with control handles and some nice rigged features that we can play with, animate. So for example, the base here, if I rotate it, you'll see it automatically curls the tail. Very useful and easy to create animations with. All right. So now we have all the basic bones we'll want to use for our rig set up. And the next step is now to just skin or parent the mesh, our body, to this armature. So first select the body, then select your armature. Normally, if you have a custom rig, you're not using AutoRig Pro, you'd hit Control P, armature deform with automatic weights. That's a decent way to do it, but AutoRig Pro has a very good skinning feature called voxelized skinning. And this gives you much more accurate results, a lot less cleanup. There's definitely still cleanup involved, but it is very preferable in my opinion. The only additional step we're going to take before skinning it is with this selected, I'm going to hit Control Tab, or actually just Tab, so we can look at the rig one more time. Shift M to go to that final layer and put in front on. Why all that? Because actually we'll do Shift M. We do want these layers. So the first two and the third one selected because I want to select all the teeth here. These are the teeth bones and the tongue bones. So those are the bones we have selected. And I'm actually going to invert this selection. So that way we can actually remove those from the rigging. It'll just be a little bit easier if they're not included at the start. So I'm going to do selected bones only. I don't want the teeth or the tongue to influence any of the weight painting on the face. I just found it to be a little bit easier that way. All right. And now we get to the fun part. We hit bind. We have voxelize selected. We've identified which bones we want. And now we're going to bind. Sometimes it takes a little while. So we're just waiting on it to load right now. Okay, perfect. So it is done. And now we can select our rig, Control Tab to pose mode, and we can start moving him around. Oh, wow. Very cool. And always a fun one, the tail. Don't worry about the small tufts. So I have my mesh set up in a certain way. Let's go ahead and disable these for now. Okay. We'll go over how to very easily rig or attach additional objects to your mesh, to your rig, towards the end. And it'll include those. The method I use to attach them to the character can easily be transferred to clothing, any sort of object that is touching the body or flush with the body. Clothing and hair is especially useful for. All right. So now that we've done that, we're going to enter kind of the dreaded part of this process, which is actually weight painting. So there are a few major problems with weight painting in Blender. And one of the biggest ones that I've already solved is being able to automatically get your weights from one side of the mesh to the other. I personally think that it's essential to start your rigging, your weight painting with a mirror modifier. Even if you want some small differences at the end, it's better to get 80, 99% of it done with your mirror modifier, then apply it and make those final changes you're looking for. This just saves a lot of time, a lot of headache. So if you're able to, again, I would just recommend apply every modifier, your subdivision and your mirror, or usually it's a mirror then subdivision. Then delete your mesh in half, put the mirror modifier back on, and you're good to go. All right. So to get into here, you just select your armature first, then shift select your mesh. Then when you enter weight paint, you now have access to your armature and your mesh at the same time. You'll notice that if I went back out and I selected just the mesh, entered weight paint, the armature is not selectable. I cannot interact with the skeleton in any way. But if I select it first, then select the mesh, enter weight paint, I actually have access to these bones now. For example, if I click the tail with control click, you can see me selecting control, then click, I can actually select bones visually instead of going through your list of vertex groups, and we can begin to make some edits. So first for the tail, I'm going to select that bone, enter edit mode, select the tail with L, which is select linked, and switch it to scene, because I have a seam line right here. It's a little hard to see. Let me just, this red line right here, it separates the body from the tail on my UVs. But since I have that line, I can actually use a select link with the seam delimit, and it'll isolate my selection. Now that I've done that, I'm going to invert the selection. Select faces, then invert the selection. And we can go into vertex groups. I have the bone. It matches the bone I just selected. And I'm going to hit remove from the highlighted vertices, which now removes any influence this tailbone had on my body. And we can go ahead and select the blur, just blend it back in just a little. So there's some influence, but it's no longer that very intense look that it had before. All right. One down. I don't see much influence by moving this bone and noticing that nothing else on the body is moving. I can assume that no other bone on the tail is influencing the body. If you had done automatic weight painting, most likely there still would have been that bleed from your other bones here on the body. That's where AutoRig Pro's voxelized skinning really comes in handy and saves you time. It's a little bit cleaner. It has a better idea of the separation of the meshes, of the bones from the mesh, if that makes sense. All right. So tail's pretty much good. Let's just test it a little bit. One thing I do like to do is I'm going to hold shift now. I'm going to control click the first one, then shift select the rest of the bones. So you can see that they're still highlighted white. Boom. And then we're going to go weights, smooth, selected pose bones. And that way it's going to smooth all the bones I have selected. I'll make it iterate twice, maybe 3 times. And that'll just help them help have their influence intersect or overlap more. You want more overlapping influence on things that need to bend really smoothly, like tails or tubes, spines. Anything that needs a very smooth bend should have a very smooth overlap. It's when you need things to bend sharply that you should have a very sharp boundary width. Okay, tail looking good. I think we can move on from that. I'm now going to target the leg here. Okay. So right now, these bones I've been able to select in this view, but to start accessing the weight paints for the rest of the leg, I need to include this last layer. So I'm going to hold down shift, click it, so I can include it in this view here. I do prefer the wireframe view when weight painting. It certainly gets cluttered visually, but I think if you mess around with it for a while, you'll get used to it. Okay, now I've gone ahead and control clicked this bone here, and we can see its influence. And if we want to see it move, the reason I kept these other bones in my selection is I can control click this one and see how that actually bends. So if I put the bone over here, kind of pose it a little bit, now when I go back to my upper leg bone, I can really see how it's pulling on the groin here. And to prevent that influence, we can just set our weight to 0, strength to 1, and pull it out of there. Now, you may notice that it's only doing half of it. And that may seem odd to you until you remember that we do have a mirror modifier on here. So interestingly enough, with the mirror modifier and weight painting, you can only influence the weight of the mesh that actually exists. So in the eyes of the mirror modifier, only this right half of the mesh exists. It's the original mesh before the modifier. So if I want to get rid of this side, I have to select the bone on the other side of the body, and now I can paint it out. In fact, I can use Alt and drag, kind of paints a selection. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll do that. Back to the other one. And we'll smooth it out a little bit, and then go to our root bone, which is this upside down bone. And we would like to increase the strength of its influence in the groin in order to prevent such strong deformation from the leg. So just slowly paint that in. Now, since this is a center bone, this bone has no pair. It's just one of a kind. When I paint with this bone, that weight does appear on both sides of the mesh, which is very, very useful. So the mirror modifier, Blender knows you have a mirror modifier, and when you're weight painting with one, it is correctly assigning the weights as you go through your process. All right. I would like a little bit less intense weight there, so I'm setting the weight to 0 now, painting it out a little bit, oops, not that much, and maybe smoothing it as well. I think the smooth brush is probably the most important part of weight painting in Blender. It usually helps you fix a lot of the problems you're going to find. All right, so only partway through the process, but we've already gotten the leg to behave quite a bit better. We can still see some pulling on this side of the leg, and I'm assuming that's still from this bone, or perhaps even it's this bone, so the lower leg bone. In order to push this influence down, I'm going to go ahead and use the Alt drag weight painting. So when I have my brush selected and I hold Alt and then I click and drag, it actually paints a line of influence in the direction of this. So a little easier to visualize if I do it over the weight. You can see how it's dragging the weight in a direction, kind of like a gradient in that direction. So very, very useful to quickly paint, and it does project through your mesh. So when I paint on this side, it's also just as directly affecting the other side of the mesh. And again, this is another major reason I use a mirror modifier for this process, because this tool specifically, the Alt drag, will not work. It will not be mirrored automatically in any other setting. You cannot use it. You cannot use it and have it automatically update on the other side without a mirror modifier. I don't know if that's a bug in Blender or what, but it's the only way I've found to be able to get that to work. Anyway, we want to paint out some of that influence in the groin, and I'll move it down the leg a little bit. So I'm just Alt drag painting it out. I want to select the other bone, other side of the bone, and then just Alt drag to completely remove any influence on the other side of the body. All right, so now when I move around, we can see that there's no wiggle on the other thigh. Whew. Oh, talking so much. All right, so continuing, let's go ahead and get our knee in better shape. So just as I was saying before, if you want something to bend smoothly, you need to smooth it. So that's what I'm going to do on the front of the knee. And if you want something to bend sharply, you need to make a sharp transition. So we're going to paint out here up to the crevice of the knee. Smooth it a little bit. And then do the same for the next bone, the upper shin. We'll make a sharp cut here. Very lightly smooth it. And then do a much stronger smoothing on the front. And now, if we go to the side view, I'm just hitting numpad 3 to go to the side view. You'll see that we get this really sharp bend to the point where it's intersecting, which is okay. That's an okay thing to happen in a mesh. It's intersecting right there, but the knee, front of the knee bends very, very smoothly. Yeah, which looks very nice. If you want a little bit softer blend, you could just smooth this out a little bit more just so it compresses a little bit nicer. But that's the general rule of thumb. And again, most importantly in this comparison between the two is the overlapping part of it. You know, we still have a little bit of blur, but the overlap goes up further here and here versus here where it meets at a sharper point. Yeah, there we go. Nice leggy. Okay. Now we'll do the lower leg. We're going to blend out its influence on the ankle, just like that or so. I'm going to select this little semicircle because it AutoRig Pro gives you a nice little tippy toe feature. as we compress it, there's too much squishing on the ankle for me, or the heel. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to alt drag, remove that influence, and then see what we've got going here. That looks pretty good. Now it maintains its shape a lot better. Let's smooth it just a little bit though, so it doesn't crumple, just compresses. And this is not really a pose you're going to see very often in VR chat. Usually the mesh armature is not bending that much, even in full body. Okay, now for the ankle portion, or the foot. This is your toes are the front segment, and then this is like your actual foot. We're going to paint out the toes because we want those to be controlled by the toe bone, which will turn up the weight, paint it in. But the tricky part about bringing the toes is sometimes you get the rest of the body. So I'm going to paint out, alt drag to make sure I remove that influence up there. And now we're doing quite good. All right. Look at that. Dancer. Dancer and Prancer. Okay. Now, we first fixed the front part, the front of the groin. Now we're going to fix the butt. So once again, going to this upper leg bone, we can see its influence here. We're going to paint out this influence on the butt cheek and soften it so it still has a little bit of pull. Then we'll go to the root, and I would say that looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit less. So erase it once again, blur it once again. Just trying to find that right balance. Side view. Okay. Again, it's okay if it compresses. All right. So leg done, tail done. Now what we're going to look at is our torso. So the hips, pretty good. We've already done kind of the bottom part of the hips. Now we'd like to check its influence along the torso. So to do that, I'll grab these control bones and we're going to rotate. All right. Looks a little bit odd because I'm mostly rotating the second, which would be, this would be spine 1, this would be spine 2. So spine 1, when we rotate it, we really don't want the groin or the hips moving at all. Pretty much, if you feel your own hips, your pelvis bone, that's not moving very much when you twist your body. That stays pretty still. And we would like our body to reflect that. So in this view, with the spine 1 selected, I'm going to alt drag and push that influence up, kind of mirroring the pelvis bone. And now when we rotate, we get a much better deformation. All right. I don't mind the roots influence going up, so let's move on to the chest bone. Here, what we want to mimic are the ribs, and that's usually what I keep in mind when I'm alt dragging and painting out this section, is that it kind of has a rib cage-like vibe. Something like this, and then when we rotate the top one, we can see it has a little bit of a pinch there. We can blend this one a little bit though. All right. So that's mainly the spine. Pretty simple. It's a tube. You don't really have to worry too much about a tube. All right. So I'm grabbing this handle here, which is for the shoulder. We're going to rotate vertically, and you can see how much it influences, which is way too much in my opinion. We don't want this other pec moving at all. So we're going to select the bone. Actually, we'll select the other one and Alt drag, remove all the influence there. Whew. And then we'll go back to the other side and just Alt drag to kind of minimize its influence as much as we can. We still need it. You can't remove it completely. But we do want to minimize its influence on like kind of the lower rib cage and then onto the arm itself. Already we have some better rotation. You can see it's just mainly the pec moving. Still some influence on the arm. Okay, back to here. Weight paint, I'm going to push it pretty much all the way out of the pec if I can. Yeah, much better. I prefer that. Let's smooth it. Wham, bam. Okay. So as we move the hand controller around, you can see a few things getting really funky. So generally moving back and forth or forward and backward is going to be pretty okay with your arm. Not too much is going to go weird there. It's mostly dependent on your shoulder. But you'll notice just that as we move up, that pulls the rib cage out. And that's two problems, or two bones influencing it. Excuse me. First is your ribs, your chest bone needs to have a stronger influence here. So we'll go ahead and select that with Control, right-click on the weight paint. Paint it in to have a stronger grab there, and maybe a little bit on the chest too. And then blur that and that. Perfect. And next is this rotation bone, which is the upper arm bone. And we'll go to weight, 0, and remove that. Perfect. You can kind of push it out of the arm a little bit. The upper shoulder can be a little bit tricky. All right, let's take a look again. All right, still too much pull. So we need to paint out, grab the little rotation arrow. We're going to hit 0, paint it out a bunch. It's pretty strong. Then blur it. So we get, look at that, much smoother. Helps keep that initial position a lot better. So I do see this little spot right here moving. Perfect. Okay. Now, additionally, the shoulder here loses a lot of definition. You just want to kind of lightly smooth that back in. It's hard to get it perfect. You would pretty much need a second bone to make it perfect, but that's a good start. All right. Next, we'll push back the influence of this twist bone a little bit. And I do make my AutoRig Pro with twist bones. And then we also have the elbow pit. I don't know what the term for this would be. But just like the knee, we're going to make a sharp blend here because we want it to pinch. Bada boom. Oops. Same here. Now when we grab our little control handle, go to an above view, we can see that it sharply compresses. Good. Sometimes, depending on the type of avatar you're making, you may want a sharper elbow. With how round this and soft looking this character is, stylized really, um, I'm not too concerned with that. But just like the knee, you could either blend it to have a really smooth bend or push the influence of maybe this bone over here and remove the influence of this bone if you wanted a sharper bend. All right, so I'm going to undo that because I don't want that. And we're going to move on to our hand. So just grabbing our control handle and rotating it, we can see some unwanted deformation. Go here. This is pretty good. Not much improvement to be had with the twist bone. And on the thumb, though, that influence extends way too far into the wrist. So I'm going to paint that out with 0. And then smooth. All right. Now comes the tricky part. So one cool thing about AutoRig Pro is the hands. Generally, they're weighted pretty well, but you can select this top circle and hit S for scale in order to create the rotation of the joint of the finger itself, which is very, very cool. You can do that for all of these. You notice that there's definitely some weight painting errors. We'll get to that in a second, but the rotation is nice and well done. Okay, so what I like to do in order to remove influence from one finger from the rest of the fingers, in this case the thumb, is select a ring with a Shift-Alt select, boom, boom, on an edge, and then Control+ to get most of it selected, and then Control-I to invert your selection. So now, when I have selected this bone, I can go to my vertex groups, tab, and remove. So now this bone for sure does not influence anything else. Same for this one. We can see a little bit of blur there. Let's just remove that. We don't want it. All right. And we just continue. So next bone, tab. Let's select this. Actually, I'm going to select a little further over here. Plus, 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 plus. Okay, invert that selection. And Control minus. No, this is good. It's good. I don't want it to go over there. Perfect. Remove. Bam. Remove. And now when I scale this, it is just affecting. These bones are just affecting this bone. I can't say the same for the middle finger. Okay. Just continue the process. Next, grab this one. Plus, 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 plus. That's good. Invert. Select this bone. Remove. Then this bone. Remove. And this bone. We're just going to go really quickly through this, do the rest of them. Move. remove, and remove. Awesome. And last finger, this one. Invert, select bone, remove the selection, rinse, repeat. All right. So now, generally, these do bend very nicely. Look at that. Very cute. Very, very nice. And just a nice, quick way to isolate that influence. Though, we did have now a very sharp cutoff. I would recommend, for sure, going back and just blending out this influence. We could have done like a smooth operation for after selecting all the bones. That's okay. All right. Now, there are a few other handles we can select here. If you remember when we were initially putting together the skeleton, there were the basically bones that are in the hand itself. And those are represented by this oblong kind of circle one, or these little circle ones here. And so you can see kind of the influence they have on the hand. Some of them are too far, so I don't want it going into the wrist. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of alt drag to paint out that selection, especially there. And then I'll smooth it. Now you may wonder why there are bones there in the first place. It's because you can rotate it out to kind of do a palm spread or compression. Very, very useful for animation. Even rotate it a little bit. So if you were to use this rig for animations, it's got a lot of features to do it nice and easily. Okay, sip of water. Next, select the rig, select the mesh, Control Tab, Weight Paint. So we've got the leg done, got the tail, torso, and arm done. Next, we're going to focus on the head. Excuse me. So we'll start with the neck. Usually the neck kind of pushes down into the head, or the chest a little bit. And we can see that happening right now, where it kind of pushes the, whatever this is called, down. So let's grab the neck bone directly and just paint that out. Awesome. Then we'll grab this weight, make it a bit stronger around these parts. Smooth, of course. And that's improved. All right, that looks good. Now the head. So for the head, we're going to remove the influence on the neck because it's kind of a sharp, it's very clear where the shape is. Thankfully, it makes it very straightforward to rig. And then, of course, smooth. Then we're just going to rotate this. There's a lot of bending here. I don't want that coming from the head. I'm going to alt drag, remove that influence on the kind of jaw there. Lessened a little bit. All right, I think that's pretty good. Let's look at a few of the other bones. We'll start with the big ones. We'll go with the ear. That is way too much. Way too much influence. So let's alt drag and remove it from the sections we don't want it to be affecting. especially like the other sides of the head. Even this is still too much. We really want it to bend where the root, or start bending where the root of the bone is. So if we go ahead and rotate this, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Maybe a little bit less, and we'll blur it. And then we'll also make the influence of the head itself a lot stronger at the base of the ear. Blur that as well. And rotate it. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Kind of pulling on the top of the head though. So once again, back to the head. Paint in some influence right here. And this one's got a little bit too much influence, the second ear bone. So we'll alt drag to paint that out, blur it. And definitely don't want this one to be influencing much further than that. All right. Let's take that out again. No, thank you. Better. All right. That looks a lot better. Okay. So now we can start focusing on some of the smaller bones. So we have all these face bones here. We got the eyebrow bones. And generally for all of these, you can pretty much get rid of their influence. Usually it's a little much. And we can go in instead and just right where they're at, we're going to put a really hot spot of influence. So we want it to be the most influential right where it is. And not anywhere else. Like it shouldn't be pulling on the ear. So you can just pretty easily go in, add that hot spot in, and then we'll select all of the eyebrow bones, go to weights, smooth. Maybe we'll just do 2 smooths and a little bit of factor. No. All right, take that back. A little bit of expand. All right. And so that gives something similar to what we had, but a little bit easier to get it centered properly. Because like we really don't need it to be influencing the top of the skull that much. It is a stylized character though. All right, going in, blurring out some stuff. Perfect. Now we're going to get to the hard stuff, which is the eyes. And just kind of like we were just saying, really could remove a lot of this influence. So I'm going to kind of shrink this one so it's not pulling so far to the left. Smooth it, see what it's doing. Smooth it again. Actually, I'm going to hit Shift M here. Open up my armature layers and just click just the first one. That way, so we can remove the larger bones from our view. Oh, sorry, Shift M. This one, the second one. All right, and this again is to visualize the influence of the bones on our eyelids. A lot of them, just like the eyebrows, have way too much influence, or it's too far. You know, they should have strong influence, but usually it's a little farther than it needs to be. And just like anything you want to bend smoothly, it should have a decent amount of overlap with the other ones, with the other bones. The exception being the corners of the eyes. So this is part of the 3 bones that make up the upper eyelid. We do not want any of the upper bone upper eyelid to influence the lower eyelid at all. So I would recommend just being very sharp and cutting that off, usually with an alt drag. You can blur a little bit. Really, again, don't want it to go much further than that. Like that at the most. Then the corner of the eye. We don't want the influence down the muzzle. Take that out a little bit. We do want this to overlap softly with the other bones. But as we get now to the lower eyelid, again, we're going to remove its influence. In fact, we can see its influence on the mouth, which we really don't want. Oops. So I'm just alt dragging to really evenly remove that influence. Excuse me. Okay, so still smoothing out, trying to get the eyelid looking good. A main reason we want this very sharp influence here is just as we've been referencing sharp in the past, this corner of the eye should sharply bend. All right. And let's go ahead and move some of the, we definitely don't want the eye pulling on the corner of the mouth, so we're going to really limit the influence of this one. Smooth it out on the eyelid itself. Here also, let's remove some of that influence. Smooth. And this is the other corner of the eyeball. This one, the corners of the eyes don't move too much, so it's okay if their influence is a bit bigger, because you're really not going to be moving them in the same way that the upper and lower eyelids are going to be moving, but good to keep in mind. All right, let's limit some of the influence there. Blur, blur. Okay, now to verify the movement itself, I'm going to bring back that first layer because it has these rectangular handles here, and moving them allows the eye to, it moves the lower lid bones, or in this case, the upper lid bones. All right, so we can see that a lot of work is needed for it to compress nicely. Usually I verify the motion of these by how well they can blink. So I'm just going to blend that, give it kind of an accordion blending. That's a good way to think about it. An accordion should fold up. And the other way to make it fold is to take the corner of the eye and push its influence up. All right. With such a stylized character too, probably going to heavily rely on blend shapes, but we'll try to make the most of this rig that we can. For now, we're doing what we can. Doing what we can. All right, so let's go ahead and try to smooth some of this out. It's really nice being able to pose the bones and paint them at the same time, because it gives you a much more intuitive understanding of how they are working together. Ooh, that one's pretty rough. I think that this one, pretty much it can only influence the lid itself. Any other influence is probably going to be too much. Should really only be affecting the lid of the eye and nothing else. Again, we're probably going to rely very heavily on a blend shape to get this working properly. All right. Squish. Just trying to get it to blend as smoothly as possible. The more overlap, the better, in order to smooth something. Smooth. Take this out of the corner of the eye. This one we're going to grow. All right. All right. Other aspect of it is having the eyebrow and the head have a much stronger influence on the pieces we don't want to move as far. So we have those. Let's also get them head bones involved. We'll select a little bit here, a little bit there. It's mostly just a general selection with a lot of blur. And making sure that this is weighted out. Might have to do another loop cut as well. Let's do weight 0.1. That way we can be very precise. Alt G. The reason I'm working so hard to do this is I do find it preferable to have a better rig than a blend shape. I'd rather be able to create the shapes I want to with a rig. Not always feasible, but definitely, in my opinion, preferable. Oops. Okay. Any other way we can correct that? You're just getting pulled down a little bit too far. Or just unevenly. There must be something else influencing it. Ooh, see. Okay. We have the jaw. Tongue shouldn't have any influence. Jaw. I don't see the jaw having much of an impact. The head, you did make it. Let's see. Looks like evil Mickey Mouse right now. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Yeah, just working. You just gotta kind of work it. It's got to be this here. Yeah. Hmm. Just so smooth above, how to make it smooth while it bends. Challenge. Okay. You can also rotate it while it bends. Okay. I think the other part of it is that we're going to have the lower lid come up and close as well. The lower lid's doing a lot better in its deformation. Look at that. So clean, so smooth. Okay, so yeah, decent rig. I think we're gonna have to rely on that, rely on blend shapes for the rest of it. Now we're gonna focus on getting the mouth rigged because it is just as messed up. So to do that, we need to make a good selection. Easiest way is just to kind of lasso select, using B, drag to select as much of the top jaw as I can. It is nice to leave a little gap on the lips, just a slight opening in the mouth. I find that when there is a very strong or close together selection, close together vertices, it's much harder to work with. So just mind the gap. All right, so this is kind of the upper section of the face. We could include more with that selection if we wanted to, but the main point is to be able to select the lips here. So this is one lip, this is the upper lip on that side, and invert our selection, and let's say on this selection we're going to remove that influence, or we really should do a center one. Remove this one, remove just all the top lips we're removing, and then we'll grab a bottom lip, invert our selection, and do the same thing. And that just allows for really clean removal of that influence. There we go. And now when we grab the jaw, we'll still get a little bit. What would that be from? That would probably be from the jawbone itself. So if we turn on Shift M, grab that final layer, select this bone, see a little bit of weight on some areas, like right there, which we don't want. How about these other bones? Anything influencing this section? That is the, I don't know what bone that is. That is the chin. Okay, that's the chin that's influencing it. So let's do it Alt drag. Remove that influence. And now it's pretty good. Nice. All right. So, pretty good. Let's go ahead and start cleaning up the bones. So, we got this lip here. It should have that selection. This one's pretty good. Maybe a little bit strong up top, but overall, it'll look pretty good. Something like that instead. Maybe less on the nose. The middle lip. This one's going to compress oddly because the nose bone here is very strong. Lose that. I'm going to weight it out a little bit vertically on both of these. Overall, I think that's pretty good. Then our lower lip, funnily enough, does not have any influence right at the center. We want influence there. Now, with the lower lip, there's less space for it to move. Now, we don't want it moving too much farther than the bottom of the jaw. So just be very careful with how it blends. Something like that should allow us to reveal the teeth, which we'll rig in just a moment. For now, ignore them. Grab the other side, mirror it, wait out the section that isn't the lip. Blur it. Blur this section. This has way too much influence on the lower jaw and inside the mouth. Again, I'm just flipping my selection to the other bone in order to alt drag out that influence that I can't touch through this bone by itself. The mirrored influence. Right. Here. Just wait out the jaw. The corner of the mouth, not as concerned with. This should not influence the eyelid. Neither should this one. Furries are a blessing. Oh, well, thank you, Neki W. Welcome to the stream. We're working on a little tutorial on how to rig VR chat avatars, which is what this work will be. But I hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Thanks for coming by. Paint that out. Paint that out. And let's go ahead and also grab the center head. And we want to extend its influence to the roof of the mouth. This. To just limit any influence that the lips might have a little too much of. Bam. Then blur that out and that out. Bam. All right. And the jaw is pretty good. I think we'll want a little bit of a stronger influence just right here or so. All right. Let's exit the weight paint mode so we can view the armature working and a little bit easier to gauge. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. So happy. Okay. So generally, that is most of the weight painting on the body done. Now we're going to do a few of the major secondary features, which are the eyes, teeth, tongue, and it's basically the fur tufts for the body. You can use very similar method to weight paint the clothing to the body. So I think if you are wanting to know how to do that, you'll want to pay attention. But let's get into getting the teeth working. So we basically have this done already. I'm going to hide that. Actually, yeah. Exit my isolated view with slash. Hide the body. Boom. And we're going to look at just the teeth for now. So first thing to do, select both the teeth, the tongue, select the armature, and we're going to parent to it with just an armature, actually with empty groups. Okay. Now that we've done that, select the rig, select the upper teeth, and Control P weight paint. All right, so now we're weight painting just this upper teeth. If your teeth, when you're doing this, are not separate, pretty easy to do. You just enter edit mode and press P to separate whatever selection you want. As long as you're not ripping your mesh apart, this is a very useful way to weight paint things in isolation. So if you just want to do just the eyes, select that, remove it from the mesh it is. You can always add it back pretty easily. Okay, but we're weight painting, and we want to go to the final layer here, because that's where our teeth bones and tongue bones are. We'll start with this one, the C teeth top. And I'm going to do weight paint 1, weight of 1, strength of 1, alt drag over, like so. And so you'll see that the kind of middle of the teeth are painted. Then we'll select the edge one of the top row of teeth. And we'll go the other direction from the outside in. And since it's mirrored, this one is updated automatically. All right. Next, we'll exit weight paint, back to object mode, select the rig again, select the bottom teeth, and we're going to do that exact same process, just with the bottom teeth here. Drag out the middle one. This is the bottom teeth, teeth bot X. Then we're going to get the side one, teeth bot L. Drag in. Voila, teeth are rigged. It is really that simple. And I really recommend separating these objects, because if they're all merged together, and it's just kind of a vertex soup, and you're going to have no idea what part is which, just pull things apart as you can to work on them a little bit easier. Okay, teeth are done. I'm going to hide those. Now we're going to do the tongue. Boom, boom. Control Tab, weight paint. And these are the tongue bones here. You can see me select them. Tongue 1. And I'm just going to drag out the weight paint. And I'll select the middle one. We're going to drag it all the way. I'm going to actually start from here to there. And then set it to 0 to remove its influence from the back of the tongue. And then from the front, from here to there. Perfect. All right. I'm going to unhide everything and play around with the rig a little bit. So now that we've done that, everything is parented, and now we've got the teeth working. Got a really nice rig. You can make goofy little expressions already, which is super fun. Definitely one of the joys of weight painting is getting to move around your little puppet, make goofy expressions. And since we've already rigged the lips, you can see how we would start doing certain expressions. Yeah, pretty fun stuff. Okay, now let's get the eyes rigged. So I'm going to select the eyes. We're going to parent it to the armature with empty groups. This one will do slightly differently. I'm using a mirror modifier, so I can just select the mesh we have, go to my vertex groups. These are all empty because I parented with empty groups. We want to find the left eye, select here, and assign. Boom. And now, it's a little hard to see in this view, so I'll switch to wireframe, but they're both working correctly. The eyes are orbiting. You can see I can move just that one and just that one because Blender knows what to do with a mirror and then a rig modifier set up like that. All right, so that's all the small bits done for the face. Oh, sorry. I take that back. We have one more. We're going to do this one exactly like the eyes. We're going to select it, Control P, empty groups, Tab A, select everything. But this time we're going to weight it to the head. Boom. Assign. Now we've got the head weighted. Grab the top bone and you can see everything's moving. All right. Now that we've done that, I'm going to hide a few things here. And we're going to focus on getting our eyebrows rigged. Now they have a mirror modifier. What we're going to use for this process is another add-on. This one is free though. Let me go ahead and show you what that is. It is called Mesh Data Transfer. I highly recommend this add-on. It is free. It is worth getting for sure. Again, this is Mesh Data Transfer for Blender. There's not many products on Gumroad that have 5 stars. This one is certainly worth it. It saves you a ton of time. So what does it do? Well, what we're able to do is transfer between different objects some form of data, a few types of data. So to find this add-on once it's installed, it's in the Mesh Data Transfer Vertex tab, Object Data Properties tab. And with the eyebrows selected, we want to target getting data from the body. So we're going to transfer data from the body to the eyebrows, though that selection has to be reversed. We have to select the eyebrows in order to target the body. Now, the key setup for this is that your transform here has to be zeroed out, or it has to be exactly the same with all these values as your main mesh that you're transferring from. It's just easiest to zero everything out. Usually I just do Control A, apply all transforms. It immediately zeroes out all this information. So I'll just do that for the eyebrows right now. Control A, all transforms. Boom, done. So make sure everything's zeroed out before you attempt the mesh data transfer, or it will not work properly. Now that we've done that, specifically what we want are the vertex groups. There's a few other things we can transfer. Vertex groups is mainly what I use this for. So we'll just click it. Bam. Then the eyebrows now have the mesh data transfer, and it's transferred through proximity. So whatever the eyebrow is touching on the body mesh, that is where it's getting the vertex group data. So that's why we have the eyebrows here. All I have to do is parent this eyebrow mesh to our armature with an armature deform, and now it's working. Very simple, very straightforward. That exact process that I just went through is the easiest way to rig clothing for your avatar. I'll probably do another tutorial just for that process. It is hands down the easiest possible way to rig clothing for your avatar. And yeah, there's really nothing else. All right, and we're actually going to repeat that process now with our tufts. So these tufts here are the little fur strands that we've placed around the body. I'm going to hide the rig right now in order to give it a lot of fluffiness. Since they're kind of secondary objects, I save them for the very end to do. Now, before I do it, though, because of the modifiers that I have in place, I have to apply the modifiers on the mirror modifier on my body mesh to do this. So that's the only caveat here. Before I do that, I'm actually going to make a backup copy. I usually organize my copies like this. Call this pre-tuft rigging. Save. All right. Now that we've done that, I'll apply that mirror modifier. And then we'll select our tufts here. So actually, let's just select the tufts and isolate them. So a little bit easier to work with here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to select all of the ones that are using our mirror modifier. So that's any that aren't exactly centered, which is most of them. Just pulling it away so I can see. Boom, boom. Oops. Boom. Boom. Okay, so that's all of our mirrored ones. Wait. Actually, I think I can just select them all and hit Q mesh. Yeah, that works fine. And then we'll just combine them together. Boom. Now they're just one object. Okay, so I was kind of going down one path with selecting one half. I don't need to do that. I just hit Q, or sorry, that's into my quick favorites. Let me back up and redo that. Oops. So I selected all of them with the isolation. I could just hit A to select all of them. And we're just going to go to Object, Convert to Mesh. So that just applies all modifiers and makes them. So boom, meshed. And then I just select one of them, Control J, which just combines the meshes. And there we go. Now we just have to do that first before we transfer the data. But now that we've done that, we'll do the same thing again, making sure everything's zeroed out. Boom, boom. Select the body. Transfer vertex groups. One additional thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Weight Paint, Weights, Smooth, All Groups. So that smooths all the vertex groups. Then we'll just combine them with the body. All right. And in fact, everything now we are going to combine with the body. So all of these other objects, we're going to mesh them well, just one at a time, confirming that their modifiers work correctly. Bada boom, boom. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Boom. Combine. Because ideally in VR chat, your character is just one mesh. You can always assign materials separately. But that is rigging in Blender for a VR chat avatar. Now, that's the weight painting. The final step is getting your avatar into Unity. So we've gone through all the steps. We've created custom bones with the ears. We've created a tail. Oh, and because we've named everything properly, we are actually able to export our custom bones, which again are those ear bones up here, right here, which are named cc underscore ear 2.l 1 3. And now with AutoRig Pro, we can go ahead and export this. Just a little cleanup here. I'm going to move just organize my hierarchy here. And AutoRig Pro has a fun little feature where you can rename your rig on the fly. So I'm going to select the rig, set character name, and Kaden. And as well, instead of the mesh being named Cade body, it should just be named body. Another best practice because you can share your animations easily if the mesh is named body. Okay, so there we go. Now this does not go over face rigging. I'll probably do that in a separate video. This is just body rigging integrated into VRChat. So I'm going to go through the process of exporting it to VRChat, what I do to test in VRChat, some basic Fizzbone setup, and then we're going to end the video for now. And my stream. I do also stream at Sam Detter on Twitch. So to export here, you have to have your rig selected. And we just go File, Export, AutoRig Pro FBX. So there's the standard FBX that Blender has, but with AutoRig Pro, I definitely recommend using these settings. Now I already have the avatar open in Unity. This is the unrigged version. I was just testing, getting textures on the character. The easiest way to get your folder is just to open Show and Explore and copy the path. And then back into Blender, we're going to paste that path. And this is what we're going to overwrite, Kaden Avi. Now, the AutoRig Pro export has a few features, a lot more features on the side here. But one huge advantage of AutoRig Pro is they have a direct to Unity humanoid avatar export settings. Blender does not have this by default. This is one of the main advantages of buying AutoRig Pro. So I'm going to include the twist bones. I prefer having twist bones. Generally, if you're looking for a clean avatar, it's recommended. We can also go ahead and bake axis conversion. That the axis conversion was broken in older versions of AutoRig Pro, but it seems to be working fine now. And then in miscellaneous, one of the other huge advantages of AutoRig Pro, which I don't utilize quite as often because I like to apply all my modifiers, but should you not want to apply them, you have that ability, and you can even apply them over your shape keys. Blender and many add-ons cannot do this, specifically applying the modifiers over shape keys, exporting modifiers with your shape keys. Even in Blender alone, you cannot apply modifiers with shape keys on a mesh. So AutoRig Pro, I don't know what magic they're doing, but this is the only add-on I've seen where this actually works well. And frankly, this feature alone makes it worth your money. It could do nothing else, and I would pay money just for this one feature. Highly recommended. I am not sponsored by them. I'm just a fan. But I don't need it for me because I do not have any modifiers besides the armature modifier on my avatar. So there's no reason to apply any of this. So a few other features that you can use. All I really want to do is make sure that bake axis conversion is enabled. And I'm going to turn off embed textures because I prefer to do all the material work in Unity. All right, now that that's done, we're going to check our rig. Perfect. Dun, dun, dun. These objects have an armature modified with preserve deploying enabled. Okay, so we're going to disable that just by clicking Fix Rig. Boom. And then export. Another great feature that Blender doesn't have for some reason is it actually remembers the folder you exported to. So anytime you return to this file and go to Export AutoRig Pro, it will remember the folder you're in. But okay, we've gone ahead and finished everything. We're now in Unity. He's facing backwards for some reason. Right, okay. Take it back on one thing only. Turn off bake axis conversion. And instead, I'm going to say initialize. So this does very similar things, but preferably this one. I think you could just do this. Okay, I'm not going to figure that out in this video. For this, there we go. Bada boom, export one more time. Save, return here. Facing the correct way. And the next thing that you'll need to figure out or use to test the rig in Unity, this is the last thing I'll do before I end the video, is you go to your FBX and first you want to make sure that read-write is enabled, legacy blend shape normals is checked. Those two things should always be on. For your rig, you want it set to humanoid. Animation, I don't import animation. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, if you're not going to, uncheck it. And then whatever material is going to use, I like to assign them directly here. So Unity knows what to apply, even if I change something. Now, for the rig, a nice way to check if everything's working properly is you can go into Configure, and this is Unity's setup for verifying the rig, and also assigning some missing things. So the first thing that is missing is the spine. So spine 2 is what we want to put into the chest slot. Upper chest is not needed. If you decided to go with a 4-bone spine, you'd put spine 03 here. But if you did not, that's fine. You can just use that. For the head, always remove the jaw. Always. And I like to remove the eyes too. Sometimes Unity and VR chat conflict. Okay, and now that we've done that, I'm just going to hit apply. Boom. And then we can go to this other menu, muscles and settings. And this is where we can kind of visually confirm if things are working correctly. So we can just do this open close thing to kind of move the body around. Nice, looks good. No major deformations or breaking. Boom, boom. And then we can do roll. Make sure the twist is looking good. And lastly, I usually test the fingers. So we'll go finger, open, close, which looks quite good. Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for watching the video, and that's kind of the general process for making or for rigging an avatar. There is more to do in Unity, but I wanted to make this video to focus on rigging in Blender using AutoRig Pro. The weight painting portion applies to any process. Um, the Auto Rig Pro may have uh, put some people off, so maybe I'll do another video without using Auto Rig Pro. Again, I do recommend it, but understandable if you don't want to make the purchase. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. I hope you catch the next one. I'll be doing some more, maybe texturing, anything related to VR chat. Definitely a tutorial coming about using that mesh data transfer. Thank you again for watching. Hope you have a great day. Bye. All right. Okay, everyone. Stop recording. That is also where I'll be ending the stream. So thank you, Oaks. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, NickU, CJM, Behehe. Who else came by? Looks like that's it for today. That was a long-winded rant about weight painting. CJM, I'll be following up with you. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate you saying that. But I definitely look forward to kind of seeing what you want, what you're looking for. And it's been a good day. So I hope you're all having a fantastic Tuesday out there. I will be back again tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for another workday stream. Look forward to seeing you then. And again, have a great day. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Bye.